In 2006 in Argentina, there was a bank robbery so ingenious yet so simple in its execution that it became known as the heist of the century. Fernando Araujo is a struggling artist. He makes impressive three-dimensional paintings that create optical illusions. Despite his talent, Fernando feels like his life is meaningless. He regularly visits a psychiatrist who helps him deal with these feelings. In addition to his passion for art, Fernando is also a skilled martial arts fighter. He makes a living by teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu at a gym. One night after work, Fernando walks home. The pouring rain forces him to take shelter under the roof of an old video store, where he lights up a cigarette. He gets splashed by a passing car. In frustration, Fernando throws his wet cigarette into the water and observes it for some time. It catches his attention that rainwater gets absorbed into a drain grate located right across from the Rio bank. This gives Fernando the idea to rob the bank by digging a tunnel into the vault through the drainage system. Fascinated by the seemingly crazy plan, Fernando follows the drain water to a drainage ditch where the water is being released into the river. Fernando tells his friend Marciano about the idea. Being a family man with a steady job, Marciano is skeptical at first. He points out that they don't even have the money for the equipment they would need to dig the tunnel. Fernando realizes that he needs to recruit more people to fund the operation if he wants the robbery to succeed. Mario Villette is a professional thief. He spends his days pretending to be a legitimate businessman to scout the loan firms he wants to rob so that he can break into their offices later at night and crack their safes. Fernando approaches his friend Doc with the plan to rob the Rio bank. Doc agrees to take part in the heist and introduces Fernando to Mario Villette. The two meet at a cafe. Fernando tries to convince Mario to join the robbery and provide the necessary funds. Initially reluctant, Mario nevertheless agrees to take a ride with Fernando to the bank. Fernando puts a soft tape measure inside the drain grate. The two drive to the drainage ditch and walk inside the pipe. They find the tape measure Fernando left hanging on the grate. Judging by the measurement, they're exactly 18 meters underneath the surface where the bank is located. Fernando intends for them to get inside through the pipe, dig upwards right into the bank vault, steal the valuables inside, and get out the same way they came, through the pipe. Impressed with his idea, Mario agrees to participate in the heist. Sometime later, Fernando and Marciano decide to scout the Rio bank. They go inside as customers and covertly take pictures with a small camera. The amateur robbers are unaware that their awkward attempt to scout the bank is being filmed by security cameras. Bank security calls the police. Seeing this, Fernando tries to walk away, only to be detained by security. They escort him downstairs for questioning. However, it becomes apparent that all this was just a clever ruse to give Fernando a chance to look at the layout of the vault floor, as the policemen don't find any photos on the camera, only because Fernando took out a micro SD card and hid it in his hand. Fernando threatens to file a complaint for unlawful search, so they reluctantly let him go. Using the photos he made and his own recollections, Fernando draws detailed plans of the bank. The crew decides to penetrate the bank through the security room, where Fernando was questioned earlier. They use a bicycle wheel to measure the exact distance from the drain grate to the bank, 7 meters. Since the drainage pipe doesn't go directly under the bank, they would have to drill the tunnel diagonally, using a point under the drainage grate as a start. The angle of the drill, 69 degrees, is derived from a right triangle where 18 meters and 7 meters are the adjacent and opposite sides. The crew brings drilling equipment to the drainage pipe and finds the starting point of the drill that they marked with a red circle earlier. They remove the metal cover of the pipe in that spot and start drilling. It's going to be a lot of work, so they enlist another robber, Alberto de la Torre. Fernando points out that they need to know what kind of safe deposit boxes are used in the vault. To figure it out, Mario goes to a branch of the Rio bank in another city and rents a safety deposit box in the vault. They continue drilling the wall underneath and make enough room in the wall to start drilling the actual tunnel, which will go at an angle of 69 degrees. Marciano says they need a special substance to reinforce the tunnel while it's being made. Sometime later, Mario and the new member of the crew, Julian, drive to pick up Marciano in a yellow van they intend to use in the robbery. Julian was hired to be the getaway driver. Mario is annoyed with Alberto, who tells his wife, La Turca, everything about the upcoming heist, cautioning the robber that with that information, she can go to the police and identify them all. But Alberto says they can trust her. Day after day, Marciano and Fernando drill the slope tunnel, using a laser pointer to keep it in the right direction. Everything goes fine at first, but then they suffer a cave-in. Nobody was hurt, but the cave-in destroyed the drilling equipment. Mario is furious about the never-ending setbacks that cost him money. He points out that Fernando doesn't even know how to open the vault. Enraged by the failing venture, he wants to quit. However, he soon changes his mind when Fernando comes up with an ingenious idea. All banks have good security measures for a regular cash theft upstairs and for protecting the vault from penetration. But if those two situations happen at the same time, security and police would focus their attention on the robbers attempting to steal the cash upstairs because they hold hostages at gunpoint. Nobody would expect a vault penetration through the tunnel going on parallel to a cash theft. Preparing for the robbery, Fernando and the rest get guns and appropriate disguises. On the day of the heist, a yellow van delivers Marciano to the drainage ditch. Then it drives to the bank, where it drops off Fernando and Alberto, who are wearing disguises. They walk into the bank, where they are soon joined by Doc and Mario, who came through a parking lot, also wearing disguises. The group splits. Doc and Mario walk upstairs. All four put on black masks, after which they threaten the staff and customers, taking them hostage on both floors. They force the cashiers to empty the registers and put the money in bags. Seeing this, a bank security guard calls the police. Right before police cars arrive, the robbers barricade all entrances to the bank. Fernando brings a hostage out of the bank at gunpoint and cautions police officers to not try anything. Otherwise, he will shoot the hostages. Mario and Fernando then bring a female hostage to a security station, where a bank security guard, Martin, has barricaded himself earlier. Robbers threaten to kill the woman. Under pressure, Martin reluctantly surrenders his station and comes out. Meanwhile, Marciano climbs through the sloped tunnel. Mario agrees to release Martin, but takes his phone, telling the police to call him on this number. Robbers destroy the bank's security cameras so that the policemen outside cannot see what they are doing. They also collect the phones of every hostage and put them on the table. Soon, Marciano reaches the vault through the tunnel and smashes through the wall. Fernando and Marciano go to a parking lot to get the drilling equipment from their car. Before the robbery, Marciano constructed a hydraulic device he called the Mega Gun, a sophisticated drill capable of destroying the lock of a safe deposit box in just 7 seconds. They assemble the Mega Gun and start opening safe deposit boxes one by one, carrying all the valuables in the hall. Meanwhile, a large police force assembles outside, including a SWAT team. Snipers take positions on the roofs of neighboring buildings and take Mario at gunpoint. The operation is handled by Police Captain Miguel Sileo. In the bank, Mario and Doc notice strange sounds on the bank's roof. They realize it's the SWAT team preparing to storm the bank. Miguel calls Mario on the phone. Mario threatens to shoot the hostages if the SWAT policemen don't leave the roof immediately. Under pressure, Miguel reluctantly complies with the demand and recalls his men from the roof. The two engage in a heated discussion during which Mario persuades Miguel to refrain from more attempts to storm the bank. Miguel gets closer, and the two have a good look at each other through the window. The diversion upstairs gives Fernando and Marciano the time they need to crack all the safe deposit boxes in the vault. Aside from cash, they also steal bars of gold. The SWAT commander consults the chief of police and Miguel on a plan to infiltrate the bank. Chief refuses to authorize the storm, hoping they can still negotiate the release of the hostages. Meanwhile, one of the hostages inside keeps asking the robbers to let him go to the toilet because he has a bladder problem. Mario gets annoyed with this hostage. Persuaded by Miguel on the phone, he decides to let the hostage go. As a sign of goodwill, he also releases an elderly woman because it's her birthday. Miguel tries to convince the robbers to surrender. It soon becomes obvious to him that Mario is just stalling for time. When the police chief tries to reason with Mario, he comically gives the policeman the number of his fake lawyer for them to make a deal, a number of a random person he found in a hostage's phone. Meanwhile, in the vault, Marciano encounters a problem when the Mega Gun overheats. The two have to wait for the device to cool down. When it returns to working condition, Marciano continues the process while Fernando puts the stolen money and gold in bags. Finally, robbers commence the last phase of the plan. They assemble in the vault and carry all the bags with stolen items to the entrance of the tunnel. Everyone except Mario. He stays upstairs and continues stalling on the phone with Miguel, asking the police to bring them some food. Marciano, Doc, and Alberto get into the tunnel and spread out. Fernando hands them the bags through a hole in the wall. Doc sends the bags down the tunnel, after which they are caught by Alberto in the drainage pipe. Alberto brings the bags to Marciano, who puts them in a small boat. Meanwhile, the police have pizzas delivered to the bank as Mario instructed them earlier. Miguel tries to call the robbers, but no one answers. Frustrated, he decides to walk closer to the bank, but he can't see Mario, as he did before. Before leaving, Fernando symbolically leaves a red cloth for the policemen with their guns on it. It is revealed that before the robbery, the crew decided to use gun replicas instead of real guns, because they knew that the police would not risk storming the bank while hostages were at risk. Mario closes the room with hostages and meets with Fernando near the tunnel. The two remaining robbers leave the bank. They cleverly block the entrance to the tunnel with a closet they pull towards themselves with a rope. The two reunite with the rest in the pipe and get on a boat. To their dismay, the boat's engine refuses to start, so the crew has to paddle. Sometime later, hostages realize that the robbers are gone. They pick up their phones and call their relatives outside, who immediately inform the police about the development. Miguel gives the order to storm the bank. He insists to the SWAT commander that his men should also check the drainage pipe below the bank, as he has already figured out that they fled through the sewer. Miguel and the SWAT policemen carefully approach the bank entrance and break down the main door. They thoroughly search the entire bank, but don't find the robbers anywhere. It is revealed that before the robbery, the crew built a small dam right near the entrance of the tunnel. While the SWAT policemen look for them at the drainage ditch, they slowly get away by paddling in the opposite direction. Eventually, Miguel and his men find the hole in the wall, only to see that robbers left a grenade trap on it. Meanwhile, the crew continues paddling. Mario manages to start the engine, so they depart fast. Miguel is informed by his men that the guns used during the robbery were replicas. Enraged, he removes a fake grenade and looks down the tunnel. The robbers get to their exit point, a manhole far away from the bank. Julian parked his van directly over the grate, pretending he was changing the flat tire. Signaled by the crew on the radio, he gets in the van and removes the cover. Robbers climb directly into the van through a hole in the floor. They use a small crane to lift the bags with stolen items. Meanwhile, the policemen find the dam. Miguel is devastated by his inability to catch the robbers. While Julian fixes the tire, the crew retrieves the last of the bags and puts back the metal cover of the manhole. Police sirens are approaching. A police car passes by, but luckily the policemen don't react to their van, so the robbers happily escape. Back at the bank, Miguel, the police chief, and the SWAT commander look at the replica guns that were used by the criminals and a sign they left hanging in the vault that says, "In a rich neighborhood, no guns, no grudges, it's just money, not love." It is a clever wordplay signaling that the crew never intended to hurt anyone, just to steal money. That is why they used replicas and not real guns. When robbers get to their safe house, they put all the stolen goods on a bed and look at them, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of their success. They stole about $20 million in cash, gold bars, and jewelry. The crew destroys the evidence connecting them to the heist, including the yellow van that they used to escape. They divide the money and go their separate ways. Enjoying their newly acquired wealth, the robbers watch news reports praising the ingenuity of their heist. They buy expensive things and shower their loved ones with gifts and luxury. But things unravel rather quickly when Alberto's wife, La Turca, finds out that he has been cheating on her. Enraged by the infidelity, she immediately goes to the police and identifies her husband and his accomplices as the Rio bank robbers. It turned out that Mario was right all along. Police cars go after Alberto. He tries to run in his pickup truck, but the brief car chase soon ends, and the robber is arrested. Policemen go into his house and find millions of dollars Alberto stashed in the ceiling. Julian is the next one to be arrested as he continued working at the wrecking yard where they burned the yellow van. Then, SWAT policemen pay a visit to Marciano's house and brutally arrest him in front of his family. After the robbery, Mario moved back to his native country of Uruguay. He enjoys spending time with his daughter, Lucia, but the happy times come to an end when he watches the news and finds out that 3 of his accomplices have already been arrested. He walks onto a balcony where he sees that his house is being surrounded by police. Mario puts Lucia in the bathroom and asks her to stay there. Seconds later, policemen break into the house and arrest Mario. To his dismay, they also brutally arrest Lucia, despite her having nothing to do with her father's crime. The only one left is Fernando, who moved to the mountains after the robbery. He tries to keep a low profile and avoids being seen in public. One day, he sits quietly on a hill while camping. Fernando reminisces about the heist, looking at the plans he made earlier. He looks ahead and observes cars approaching him from afar. Saddened by the way things turned out, Fernando realizes that his time has come. Arriving policemen conduct a search and find Fernando's heist plans, verifying his identity as the last robber. Years later, Fernando leaves prison after serving his term. He is met by Mario, who was released earlier. The two friends happily reunite and drive away in Mario's red car. By the way, guys, this movie is based on a real story. The 5 robbers were arrested and each served various prison terms, from 7 to 15 years. The fact that they used replicas instead of real guns played in their favor, and all had their sentences reduced for good behavior. However, Antonio de Bauza, also known as Doc, was never arrested. Of the $20 million that were stolen, only $1,172,000 were retrieved. The rest is still missing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.